Dear listeners, most people think a house is something you buy. But if you have ever stood in an empty room that used to belong to someone else and tried to picture your life in it, you already know it's something much bigger than that. So it's a decision about who you want to become. And today, that decision is being made inside one of the noisiest, most uncertain markets that we have seen in years. So, how do you think clearly when everyone around you is shouting? Let's find out. Welcome back to another powerful episode of Mind Meets Machine. I'm your host, Avik, and this is the podcast where we slow down the conversation around the big systems shaping our lives, markets, technology, leadership, decisions, and bring them back to something human. And my guest today, dear listeners, please welcome Brett Risona. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Avik. I'm so excited to be here today.
Amazing, amazing. And dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'd quickly love to introduce you with Brett. So Brett is a Colorado-based executive leader and the real estate strategist who helps buyers, sellers, and relocating professionals make clear, confident decisions in today's housing market. So his work is built on trust, long-term thinking, and the belief that real estate is not just transaction, but it's a life decision. And in this conversation, we are going beyond the headlines. Like we are talking about what's actually happening in the market right now, and how to make confident choices when the ground feels kind of unsteady, and the leadership lessons that only show up when the stakes are real. So, wait, let's get started. Welcome to the show again, Brett.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Lovely, lovely. So, Brett, before we get into the market, I want to start something very simple. Like real estate is one of those careers people don't usually dream about as kids. So why I'm curious is what was a moment that made you realize this was the work you wanted to build your life around?
Yeah, honestly, it was a profound year for me. I've always
Hmm.
loved real estate. My mom did property management when I was a kid. We moved a lot.
Okay.
But for me, my executive leadership, I focused on relocating families when I hired people. So
Hmm.
I was involved in real estate for a long time, but never took the leap. And in one
Okay.
year, I ended up getting divorced, so I lost my wife, my house, my job, and got cancer all in the same 12 months. It was a profound year of loss for me. And in the hospital room, I had this overwhelming sense of I need to do more with my life.
Exactly.
I need to do what makes me happy. So the 2 weeks between two different cancer surgeries, I actually got my license in the hospital, did 172 credit hours. In those 2 weeks, it was either that or watch soap operas, right? Which at the hospital are always terrible. So in those moments, I just felt like God was calling me to do more, to be more present and to be more helpful to people that I met. And so real estate has always been a passion, but that was the push I needed to go pursue my dream.
I agree. I agree. And obviously, that's a beautiful place to begin because I think people forget that behind every transaction is a person who choose to show up for it, right? So that's very true. And also, every day, I also talk about the misconception part as well. So in this scenario, let's start with what people think they know. If I turn on the news right now, I'm hearing 10 different stories about the housing market. Like it's crashing, climbing, frozen, it's on fire, right? But I'm curious, from where you are sitting, what is the biggest misconception people are carrying into their decisions right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people think they can't afford to make a change. And that might mean that, look, the house is too small for us because our family's growing, but we have
Yeah.
a great interest rate. We cannot possibly take on more debt right now. Or it could be a first time home buyer that's like, I just can't afford the down payment, right? I think it all centers around the fact that they can't afford it. And that's the biggest misconception. They can't afford to make a change. And that couldn't be further from the truth right now. It's actually the best time to make a move because house prices are lower and we can manipulate the rate in so many ways. So I think the biggest misconception that people have is they can't afford to make any kind of a change. And that
Exactly.
comes from what you were saying. Their aunt or their uncle says, be safe, don't make a move. Or mom and dad, which they're all well meaning, they're just also wrong. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. They can be well meaning and they can also be incorrect, right? And
Uh,
so, or social media tells them, stay. be safe, don't make a move. And that's just, it gets into people's minds and they simply just can't get out of their own way. And so
Yeah,
what I try to do is show them just math, right? The math matters. Let's remove the emotion from it. Let's look at numbers, and that's what you make your decision on. And so I think that's the biggest misconception is we can't afford to make a move.
exactly, exactly. So, and for someone hearing that for the first time, how do you help them separate what's actually happening in their life from what's being broadcast at,
Yeah.
I mean, every day?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I don't tell them anything at first. I listen. And that's where you
Okay.
take it down to the human element, right? Of what's going on in your life? I need to know why,
Uh,
if you were to make a move, what's the why behind it? Have you outgrown
uh,
your space? What's the stress that you're living under? Is it, maybe it's a negative too. You've lost a job, you're getting divorced, something, right? There's always a reason behind making a move. Because let's face it, moving sucks. We don't like packing boxes. We don't like getting in a car. It's not fun. So there's always a reason or a driving factor. So I tend to spend a lot of time understanding the why. Why would you make a move? What is happening in your
uh,
life that would cause you to do something like this? What is it going
uh,
up in size? Is it going up in location? Is it, hey, our kids, we just want to put them in a better school? I need to understand the why because without understanding the why, I can't guide you the right way. And I think that's where great agents come in. And there's very few of us out there, but we focus on the people. The house is the easy part. We want to focus on the people in the relationship. And so I think it starts there. Once I understand the why behind the move, then we're going to help elevate them into the right thinking, the right mindset. I want to frame it as to look, if you make this move, it's easy to make the house payment work. I know the strategy behind that. We can make the numbers, but I need to know how to make the house work for you. What problem does this solve? Does it give you the more space that you need? Does it put you in the location for your children? Does it cut down on the drive time to work because you're having to go back in the office now? You're no longer allowed to be fully remote. Like there's all these reasons and why. So I think the thing that helps my people the most is that I care so much about the reasoning and the why. To be honest, as a good agent, great agent, the strategy is the easy part. The hard part is getting to understand the why from your clients and helping them see why this move solves those problems. Once you've done that, the numbers
uh,
are really easy to explain because they're thinking from a clearer picture. They're thinking of problem solving. They're not thinking about what Aunt Judy said or what Tom on the news says. They're focused on their family because that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what's happening in the world. What matters is your family and how can we do this right for you? And the answer might be you still need to wait, but we're going to put a strategy in place for 6 months from now, 12 months from now that you're going to feel confident in. And the key is the confidence. Once they have the confidence, they walk into a situation, there's no longer emotion driving the decisions. They're looking at strategy, they're looking at numbers, and the emotion gets removed for the most part. I don't want all emotion removed because I do want the mom to walk in and envision her children in that room. I do want the dad to walk in and say, "This is the home I can build for my family that we can be together," or whatever the situation. It could be an individual, right? Whatever that situation is, I want them to be able to focus on the fun part of the emotions, the envisioning of how we would make this work for us or how make it work for me. But it's removing the stress, the negative emotions. That's the part I want to take out.
okay. So I'd say that's such an important distinction because the headline is written for millions of people, and your decision has to be written for one, and that is for you. So, I mean, obviously, those are really the same conversation. So, if you go deep down also, and if you see the pattern. When you watch buyers and the sellers make decisions in this kind of environment, there's usually something deeper driving the hesitation or the urgency, not just the numbers. I mean, what do you see underneath it all?
Yeah, I think people want right now, I think there's a lot more of the focus on their family
Huh.
in
Huh.
terms of how they live their life, especially in Colorado. We're such an outdoors state where people want access to nature. They want access to trails. They want access to
Huh.
community. And so I see a lot more people are so enthralled with the idea of where they live and not just the house, right? There's a lot of, I want to be in the mountains. I want land. I want space. For some of the buyers, they want a yard and they haven't had
Yeah.
one before. And so for me, I think it's more not just the house, it's the space around the house that's becoming so important to people. And I think it really started with COVID, right? Like we lost the freedom to do those things. And so now people are taking control of their life a little bit more, and more as the years go by, they're deciding for them, right? They're taking that chance. They want land, they want space. And so I think the neighborhood is really more impactful than it's ever been.
And also, does fear tends to show up louder than the opportunity?
I think until we meet, until we have conversations, they're always coming from a fear-based approach. I'm just checking it out. I'm just taking a peek. I'm not sure that we're ready.
Yeah,
Everybody feels this need to say one of those statements. And you know what? Good for them. I'm glad that they're speaking that because it helps them. The problem is they're not often heard. They walk into an open house and the agent just pushes right past it and just says, "Well, here's how I can do it." And that's just a sales tactic, and that's just more pressure. All that does is amp up the fear, right? They need to be heard, they need to be listened to, and the acknowledgement of that fear actually makes most of it go away. You're right. It is. It is a tough time to buy unless you know how to manipulate the market. And it's those
exactly.
kind of statements that lead to them saying, well, how would we do that? If I just tell them, it doesn't register. I need them to want to know why, and I need them to want to understand. And then at that point, you're able to actually help them. But it starts with just listening, just understanding that fear and
Exactly.
addressing it, not pushing it to the side.
And so, suppose let's bring it to someone's living room, right? So, say there's a couple listening right now, and they have been saving for years and years, and they have got a baby on the way, or kind of career shift happened, or maybe they are thinking of uh, about leaving the city. I mean, they have outgrown. So they keep freezing everything. They look at the market. So, what does a grounded conversation with them actually sound like?
Yeah. I think it starts with a lot of their story. It
Hmm.
starts with a lot of why did you pause? Why didn't it feel right? What gave you heartburn when it came time to pull the trigger? And that's really the fear, right? Is are we making the wrong decision? Is this wrong for us? And what often ends up happening is that I find they never went deep enough. They didn't get enough info. They didn't see enough houses. They didn't see enough payment scenarios. They weren't given enough options for the comfort to be there. But more importantly, it goes back to addressing the fear. No one actually listened enough to the problem. No one cared enough to listen to what was important to them. They were just focused on a deal. That's usually what I find. Instead of, look, what is the real crux behind this move? Is it the growth? Is it getting out of the city? Okay. There's so many questions that spiral from that. Most people don't go deep enough into the why. They need to really drill down because the fear isn't at the surface. It's two, three, four layers deep. And so you've got to get deep enough into their story and you've got to care enough. It can't be fake. You really genuinely have to care about these people beyond just the house. And I do. And there's a lot of good agents out there that do. But the ones that care the most about the people go deep enough to understand the why. And it turns out that once that is addressed, those conversations become so easy because they get excited then. It's just like, okay, this person gets me, right? They understand what's holding me back. And then honestly, like I'm not able to do my job if I don't understand that. I need to be able to speak to them in a sense of, I heard you, this was your concern. Here's how this house addresses that concern. Here's how this neighborhood addresses that concern. And I'm able to point it out to them and bring it to the surface. And that's when people start to feel comfortable. They feel heard, they feel comfortable, and they're able to take that guidance at that point. And I think the other thing too that's really important is that I acknowledge when it comes time to make the decision, and I also tell them if you're not ready, don't do it. And that is hard for a lot of agents to do because they need the transaction, and I need them to be happy instead. That's the focus, right? I need them to be joyful in this decision. I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to do as many as it takes. And honestly, that nudge of don't do it if you don't feel ready really ends up pushing them over the edge because they feel like they're not pressured, and then they make the decision to jump at it. I think the math makes the decision easy, but what really shows is it's the care for their emotions. That's what gets them in the process. Once they're in the process, the math solves the problem for them. Um, but I don't want them in the process if they're not emotionally ready to be in the process, because it's not fair to them. It just adds stress. It's just unnecessary stress and challenges they don't need to go through. So I'd rather take more time up front preparing them emotionally for the process, walking through scenarios with them. Hey, you know, I like to sit down and show them houses and say, hey, here's how we can win this house. Here's how this house solves those problems. If we walk into this open house or we walk into the showing and you love this house, it's going to be gone because it's a great price, it's a great value, it's first weekend on the market. So you're going to need to make a decision in the moment if you pursue this house. If you're not confident doing that, we should not go see that house. And there's other houses where it's like, hey, it's been sitting, it's overpriced, it needs work. You have time for this house. You don't have to make a decision on Sunday when we see it, right? You can take a week or two and process. And I let them know. So we role play, we talk through scenarios because I need them to be emotionally ready. I want them to be emotionally ready. And those practice rounds that we go through really help them. I think one of the things that's helped a lot of my buyers that are maybe unsure of exactly what they want is I take them to extra houses. I'm like, look, if it checks 50% of the boxes, let's go see it. The more you see, the more comfortable you're going to be. Most people see that as a waste of time because they know they're not buying that house. But for me, every house we walk through is not a waste of time. I learn something about what they want, and so do they. If it's a husband and wife, for example, or even, roommates that are buying a house together, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the scenario is, if they haven't walked houses before, they don't maybe know how to explain to their partner what they love and what they don't. So inside the house is where those conversations happen. It brings them closer together. It brings them closer to what matters. And it helps me understand what really matters to them. They might say they want an open concept kitchen, but when we get in it, it still might not feel big enough, or it might be too big, right? So they don't know that till they're standing inside of it. So for me, that's why it's so important to have that conversation inside a house, to show them what it means to have this, to show them what it means to have that space. And that's where the emotion turns positive. That's where they start envisioning things, but it also helps them communicate. What's actually happening in the market right now? Buyers are much more payment sensitive. Sellers are more strategy dependent. So, right now, my smart buyers are asking a couple questions. Does this payment fit my life? Can I stay in this home long enough to ride out the short term noise? And am I buying the right asset? I'm not just chasing the lowest rate. So those are questions that I am helping my buyers work through. And if they don't know to ask those, I'm bringing them up, right? We need to look at this from more than just does this payment fit my budget? Because here's the thing, we can make the payment fit your budget, right? Or you can increase your budget. Most people don't understand everything that even goes into the payment. It's much more than just the mortgage payment. There's quite a few things that go into that. And so for me, I'm asking, how long do you want to stay? What goal do you have? And that goes back to the initial question, right? If you have young children, you might be wanting to stay 10 or 15 years. Or, hey, if your kids are teenagers, you're probably downsizing in 5 years. So we need a different type of house. We need a better deal that's going to appreciate faster because you're not staying long enough to also get the equity long term. So it all starts with the questions, right? Again, all of this goes around your why, and we build the strategy from there. So, but you need to look at this as a financial investment, right? And that's really hard because dads and moms, even if if you have kids, you're looking at the memories that can be made here. You're looking at the convenience of your life, but 5 years from now, you're not going to need those same conveniences. You're not going to need those memories. So I help bring in the financial piece that matches what they're trying to accomplish with the home. And so I also sit down and talk with them that, hey, life happens. Just because you're planning on being here 10 years doesn't mean you will. Something could happen and you have to leave in 2 years. So my job is to make sure that you're still okay if you have to make that move in 2 years. And so we have discussions up front. So I look at the long term strategy and then I shrink it down to the short term to say, even if worst case scenario, you have to sell in 2 years because you get relocated or something happens, you're still going to be okay if you pick this house. On the flip side, I also tell them if they won't be. I also let them know that this is only a long term play. If you're not here at least 5 years, you can lose money on this deal. So we need to talk about that. And if you still love this house, that's okay, but you need to understand the short term risks. It's just about being transparent. Yeah. Yeah. Our our parents and our grandparents were not taught how to make money in real estate. They were taught to find something cheap find something that fit your family and never leave. That's what they were taught. And so for the current state of the market, the current environment that we live in, real estate is the easiest way to build long-term wealth. I think the biggest misconception is that you can't afford it. There are so many programs out there to make it affordable to get into a house. Rent in Colorado, rent has increased almost 15% every single year. That's a huge increase. Because here's the thing, landlords still have to make money. They've got bills, right? So your rent is never going to be keeping up. They don't want to just pay the bills, they want to make money too. So you're paying for someone else to own a home. There are programs in Colorado that you can spend only $1,000 and purchase a home. The government will give you this grant up front to purchase a house. You can get in with only $1,000. And the misconception people have is they can't afford it, because here's the thing. If you go to rent a home, you need your entire first month's rent up front. You need an entire month's security deposit. In some cases, you need a third month. That could be anywhere from $6,000 to $15,000. You could buy a house with that money, with even less than that. So that's something people don't understand, is it's actually easier to buy than it is to rent in a lot of cases. And that's the misconception. I also hear from people, you just need to get in the game. Just get a house. Well, the problem is, if it's not the right deal, you're actually hurting yourself. It's not about just getting, it's about getting in the right way. And there's so many ways to do that. So I think the misconception is that I kind of alluded to it at the beginning. Your parents mean well, your grandparents mean well, your aunt and uncle mean well. They just don't know what they're talking about in most of the cases, because they don't do this every day. And it's not their fault. They weren't taught the right way to do it. So in those instances, that's the hardest part to overcome, because it is your parents, it's your grandparents, it's your friends who you trust. And I'm someone you might have just met a month ago, but it isn't that they're ill meaning, it's just they're ill informed. That's it. At the end of the day, I want their parents involved in the process. I want their friends involved. So I have no problem having multiple conversations. Bring them to the table. Let's talk. If you're a first time home buyer, I want to talk to your parents too. Let's get them in the room. Let's sit down together and let me show them too how to do this, right? Let me coach them too on how to make this the best investment of your life. It's okay. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to feel afraid. And it's okay to walk in uncertainty. That's actually where real growth is made. It's okay. But what you need more is someone on your side that doesn't tell you to get over it, to not listen to it. It's okay to be scared. I was scared in the hospital room. I had no idea what I was leaving away a couple $100,000 salary to go to a commission position. I was afraid. I was uncertain. But the greatest things in life are on the other side of fear. So for me, the goal isn't to predict perfectly, it's to structure wisely. And at the end of the day, you're able to back out at any point. So just because we have a conversation doesn't mean you have to list your home. Just because we go see a couple houses doesn't mean you have to buy. Let's just explore what this looks like. Let's take it one step at a time. And let's keep your feelings and your emotions front and center. And let's keep your family or your individual story the most prevalent. The house will take care of itself. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. You're in the exact same spot you are now. So don't be afraid. That's what I'd say. Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I'm in the people business. Real estate's just the vehicle that I use. My job is to help people make big decisions with clarity, confidence, and a strategy that serves their life long after the closing table. And there's a couple ways they can follow those stories of other people, and they can see their journeys too. The biggest one would be my Instagram, breasoner1015. That's my Instagram handle. And then my homepage, brettreasoner.az.com. Those are the best places to interact with me, to follow my story, my faith, my journey, my overcoming cancer, my family as we grow, but also the families that I help. I love helping them, putting their stories out there and showing how we really make a difference. So those two places would be the best spots to follow along or interact.